Hey everybody, you just tuned in to the Grow Wire podcast. I'm your host, Fritz Nelson, and I'm joined by Kendall Fisher, producer and host of the Grow Wire show. Hey Kendall.
Hola.
Whoa, we're going Spanish.
Oh, I just felt like doing that today.
All right. Can you do everything in Spanish?
No.
Okay.
Well, no hablo español muy bien. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good enough. Better than me.
Oh, thanks.
All right, I'm excited about this episode. It's about Creativity Explored, a San Francisco-based nonprofit giving artists with developmental disabilities the means to create and share their work with the community. The studio not only provides classes for artists, it sells the artists' work through exhibitions, online sales, and more, giving them the ability to become self-employed, full-time working artists. That is amazing.
It's so cool.
Now, we're joined today by the development director, Megan Hover, as well as one of Creativity Explored's longtime artists, Rory. Instead of me providing an introduction, I'll go ahead and let Rory do the talking. Rory, I want to know how you got involved with Creativity Explored.
I've been in Creativity Explored for a long time.
How old were you when you started?
I'm 38 now, and it wasn't that long. I was there the first time, and then either something happened or not. So I was out for a little bit, and then I decided to at one reason, and then I decided they asked me to come back. So I came back to Creativity, and I've been there for a long time now. And I think it's fantastic, and working around art. I just always appreciate it, you know.
When did you how old were you when you discovered that you loved art?
I just always appreciate, and I always loved art, you know, when I was growing up, you know, and art changes, in many forms of it, and I think that's amazing, you know.
So you didn't like math? You didn't like?
No, I mean, math was okay, not really my favorite.
I didn't like math,
but when I was in school, but way after I graduate from high school, and after a while, then I love math. You know,
you learned to love it.
Yes.
So what do you remember? What some of the first pieces of art you created? Were they drawings? Were they paintings?
Well, it was I wasn't quite painting yet, and I would say it was more like it was drawing and sketching, and just making amazing artwork, you know. And then from there, I just on my way up to painting in many forms of it. Yeah.
What are your favorite things to draw and to paint?
It depends what it is, or it could be from a little bit from a picture, or when I take random pictures, if it's around the city or something, or if I'm on vacation or something, you know, and if it's when the light hits it in one way, and then I just take the picture, and then I have those random pictures, and if I see it just a little bit, it's just a little bit from the picture, but mostly is from memory.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So you made for me this wonderful pin of Supergirl.
Yes.
So was this from a memory or from a comic book or?
Yeah, it was kind of it was kind of a mixture of it, a bit.
And so this is one of your favorite characters?
Well, one of my favorite.
Yeah. I love this one too. Yeah. And describe this one to me as well. You made that one.
This one is like a different type or form of a different type of cat. And I decided to, just draw it out and see how it is. And when it hits it just a tad, and then I just start drawing it, and then when I keep on working on it, and when it's the final thing of it, and then I decided to make it an art piece.
So you work on these pieces over time. Like you have a version and you're like, you want to make it a little
Yes.
better and you keep working. Like how long does it take you to get to the point where you're happy with it?
I probably, excuse me, I guess I probably have to say it takes a little bit of time, but not too not too much of it. Like in the progress of it until it's done.
Do you put it away for a day and come back to it, or do you?
I kind of do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
you have a different perspective.
Yes,
that you
I do.
come. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Oh, thank you.
What things are you working on now?
I'm working on like more different type. Well, actually, I'm making more art, and it's from memory, but I'm also doing it's like drawing and sketching, like I said. But at some point, it'd be like a finished piece, and when that's done, and I'm doing like an animation of that as well.
Oh wow.
It'd be for creativity explored.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see that.
Thank you.
So excited to be able to talk to you, and I love your work and,
thank you for
keep
that.
doing it. Thank you so much
I
for
will.
joining us. I mean, hearing the impact Creativity Explored has had on Rory is so inspiring, but I also got to see some of Rory's work. He made some pins for me out of some of his favorite artwork. It's really fantastic.
I got a pin too, and I was so thrilled. And he also told me that my name is his favorite name.
Ooh.
Yeah, he was like, Kendall's my favorite name.
I think he had a crush on you.
Oh, he was great. He was awesome.
Yes, he was. Now let's get into our interview with Development Director Megan Hover to let her explain how the organization is doing it and why its mission to support people with disabilities in their quest to become working artists and promote their work as emerging and increasingly important contribution to the contemporary art world is so important, not only for the artists, but for all of us as well. I believe that.
Me too.
Coming up next.
You're listening to the Grow Wire podcast, a place where you will learn the ins and outs of growing a business, running a business, or even taking your big idea, career, or personal development to the next level. It's all possible. Our host, Fritz Nelson, the editor-in-chief of GrowWire.com, will take you on an exploration of growth through candid conversations with some of the most brilliant minds in entrepreneurship, entertainment, business development, and more. Whatever your goal, we know you'll walk away with the right tools to help fuel your journey of growth.
I want to start with what is Creativity Explored for those who have not heard of it.
Yeah, so Creativity Explored is a nonprofit art studio working with over 130 artists with developmental disabilities each day. We provide them with space, supplies, professional instruction, and exhibition opportunities to sell their work, of which the artists receive 50% of each art sale. So it's really a way for them to not only be creative, but earn a little extra money in the process.
Can you give us a little backstory on when it was founded, by whom, etc.?
Yeah, so back in the 1960s, 1970s, a bunch of institutions that were working with people with disabilities were actually closed down in the state of California. And our founders, the Katzes, Florence Ludens Katz and Elias Katz, started our organization and our sister organization, Creative Growth, over in Oakland. And then we have another sister organization called NIAD up in Richmond, California. And together, we are the first organizations working with artists with disabilities. And it was really an opportunity to not only provide community for people with disabilities, but also give them an opportunity to have a creative outlet and really contribute to society.
What was their motivation, if you know the the backstory on that?
It was really motivated by, so Elias Katz was a psychologist, and he saw all of these people with disabilities with no place to go during the day. And the burden was really placed on the families instead of the state taking on the responsibility of working with people with disabilities. And he had this idea of starting some sort of space to provide community for people with disabilities. And Florence Katz is actually an artist, so she thought of this idea of opening an art studio. So they opened it up in their garage, and one by one people started joining the program, and then shortly thereafter it expanded into San Francisco and Richmond, and of course the creative growth over in Oakland as well.
So one of the things that we like to talk about is, are these journeys, which, looking back since this was started so many years ago, it's easy just to kind of say, we grew and grew and grew, but there had to have been a lot of struggles and so forth along the way, especially as a nonprofit, especially working with the disabled, especially working with the arts. It's like sort of the triple threat of growth obstacles, if you will. What were some of the early or even more recent obstacles, and what were some of the ways that the company overcame them?
Yeah, I think another obstacle is just working in San Francisco. Yeah. Space is definitely a limitation that we experience from the get-go, and we still experience to this day. We started off as a small nonprofit in Mission Cultural Center over in the Mission District of San Francisco, starting with about 20 artists with disabilities. And we're now in our current space over on 16th Street and have been there since 1985. And we are lucky enough to have a very generous landlord. However, just given the limitations of the space, it also means that we can't grow. So we're constantly thinking of ways to where we can maybe either buy real estate or rent real estate in order to expand our program. We were lucky enough to find another very generous landlord in 1995 and create our second studio, but now it's just a matter of we're still now capped at about 130 artists. And there's over 9,000 people with disabilities in San Francisco. So how can we reach and touch their lives as well?
One of the things that that I'm curious about in terms of, as a nonprofit, when you have to do stuff that costs money, how do you deal with getting donations and funding when, it's obviously it's going to help the organization grow, but it's not going directly to, the thing that people want to benefit, right? So how do you guys convince donors to give you money to get more real estate, for example?
Well, so first of all, we were very lucky to get seed money back in the early stages from the National Endowment for the Arts. So that was federally funded, and now we have a strong partnership with the state of California, who has a fee-for-service contract with us. So we actually get about 50% of our income from the state of California through that fee-for-service contract. So we're really lucky that 50% of our income is already secured. However, we have to make up the other 50% through donations, and then a small portion of it also comes from art sales. And what we essentially do is just share the stories of our artists. We've been able to grow and innovate throughout the years, adding programming to provide more opportunities for our artists. And through those, I think it really excites our donors and our supporters. And we've been able to share the stories of the journeys our artists have gone on throughout their time at Creativity Explored. And I think just through those stories, through the innovative programs that we've been able to offer, it really hits home for a lot of people. And they continue to come back and give money to us year after year. So we're really, really lucky to have that.
And where can people find these stories?
So we post a lot on social media. We always do birthday shout outs to all of our artists on social media, talking about their art practice. And we also share stories through our newsletter. We have an e-newsletter, as well as we mail newsletters to our donors where we share the stories of our artists. And then every single year we produce a video that can be found on YouTube. So definitely check that out. And we highlight about 2 to 4 artists in those videos. And that's really where it gives them an opportunity to speak about their work individually. Their families typically come in and talk about their journeys, and then also our very, very important teachers who work with them day in and day out get to talk about their transformation as well.
Great. Well, we'll include some of that information in the podcast notes. I want to turn to the mission of the company and talk about that a little bit. I'm curious about, what is the philosophy behind the importance of art to people who have disabilities?
Yeah, so I think really the Katzes, they really sparked this revolution. And we're now seeing organizations like ours pop up all around the world. And we're getting calls from people all around the world asking how they can provide opportunities like ours to people with disabilities. And I think really what it gets down to is artists really truly understand how creative outlets allow them to share their individual stories, share their unique experiences. And that's even more so important for people with disabilities. People with disabilities are often marginalized or ignored or forgotten. And so giving them a piece of paper and giving them a paintbrush allows them to share their story, share their experiences, and really show the world what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, it's funny. We, in a previous podcast, we were talking to a couple ex-Pixar people, and one of the people was an artist, and she said, art is really allowing people to see things through your eyes, right? And so what's fascinating to me is being able to see the world through the eyes of a disabled person. And I'm just wondering what you've learned in seeing the art that they create through their eyes.
Oh, yes. It's been quite amazing. One piece that I love to share with people or talk about is actually an animated short that one of our artists, Laurent Bickerstaff, he has mobility impairments and gets around in a wheelchair. And he actually made an animated short about what it's like for him to get around the city and what it's like for him to feel like he belongs in this city, because it's things that we overlook. Seeing two steps as you enter a building might not seem as big of a deal for you or me, but for Laurent, that means he can't enter that building. So it was really great for him to share his story through the animated short and be able to show what does it mean to be somebody in a wheelchair trying to be independent in San Francisco, or really any city for that matter.
We interrupt this podcast episode for a word from our sponsors over at The Second City. Want to challenge your company to innovate and elevate through laughter? Second City Works is the B2B side of world-famous comedy mecca, The Second City. They've helped hundreds of Fortune 1000 companies inspire better performance by using their award-winning improvisation and audience-driven techniques that are powered by humor. Interested in live events, hands-on workshops, campaign consultation, branded content, and a whole lot more? I do too. So visit secondcityworks.com to learn more. I'm curious too about, because that just warms my heart, and it surprises me in a lot of ways too. What are the limits on what people who have disabilities can do with art? I mean, the fact that sort of art can be made is just astonishing. but like that's probably not anywhere close to the limits.
Yeah, I really think it's limitless. I mean, we have artists who don't speak, whether it's because they're mute or deaf or maybe have a difficulty comprehending or just putting their thoughts into words. But it doesn't stop them from picking up a paintbrush or picking up found objects on the ground and gluing it to a piece of paper. We have artists that do that as well. We also have artists who maybe if they do have some difficulties moving their hands, or maybe arthritis is affecting how their movement, we have clay, or we have online applications that we're able to use for them to work on a computer. We're able to really kind of adapt to what it is that their unique abilities are and really provide that medium for them to work with.
What sort of teachers do you guys have doing this? It's got to take a special kind of teacher. So, given there's the art side and there's the ability to deal with people who have learning disabilities.
Yes. Yeah, so all of our artists or all of our teachers are all professional artists. So they have their own arts practice as well. And in addition to that, the tenure of our teachers is spectacular. A lot of our teachers have been with the organization for 10, 20, some of them even 30 years. So they've been working with people with disabilities, working with our artists, and really have been able to grow as experts and really leaders in the field. And now we even have social workers who are just now starting with the state of California who really look upon our teachers to provide them with information on working with people with disabilities.
What's the biggest challenge for a new teacher coming in? I mean, if they've never worked with somebody who's disabled, I'm sure it's rewarding and fulfilling, but it also has to be very frustrating as well to see someone who is, just grasping the most simple concept. In some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, they are trying to grasp simple concepts. That has to be difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely a learning experience for everyone. Just understanding and recognizing that it takes maybe a little extra time and a little bit more one-on-one attention to really teach someone how to do something such as using a paintbrush or holding a pencil. That might take a little bit of time, but if you stick with it, the results are outstanding.
Yeah. It's I have as some people who have listened to this podcast may know, I have a brother who has Down syndrome. And when I was in middle school, I did a science fair project, and one of the things I did, and it was on Down syndrome. One of the things that, at least back in those days, probably still now, that they were working with disabled people like my brother on was just hand motor, eye coordination, motor skills, basically. And so what I did every day, I drew a 4-leaf clover on construction paper, and I had him cut it out. And the very first day, it was, he basically cut it into a square. It was nowhere near, what you would expect something to be. And I worked with him over, a few weeks. Every day he would cut out the same thing. I would go through it with him. I would show him what I wanted. And every day it just kept getting better and better. On the very last day, I had to hand in my science experiment, he cut it perfectly. And it was amazing to me, but it was also very frustrating as a 13-year-old kid who could just cut it out just fine. Trying to get him to do it was very painful at times, and so I imagine that it must be very difficult.
Yeah. And that's what's great about having a studio dedicated to people with disabilities is the space is specifically for them. It's not a matter of being able to rent a few hours here and there of a studio space. It is this space is dedicated to you and your art practice. So you come and you create art. We provide as much mentorship or instruction as you need or as you want. But for the most part, this is for you to just be creative. So just having an opportunity to have this space and supplies alone, I think, is really transformative.
And you talked about the exhibition of this artwork, so I want to dive into that a little bit now too. So, so how many have you done?
So we have a gallery in our studio, or just very adjacent to our studio, over on 16th Street in the Mission District. And in our on-site gallery space, we have 6 different exhibits each year. So a majority of those are group shows where we feature the work of 2 or more artists. And then we always dedicate one show to feature one artist as the solo artist for that show. And typically the solo artists are picked because they've been with our program for a certain number of years, so they've been able to build up their portfolio and really hone in on their practice. But we're also really grateful to partner with galleries and museums around the world to work with them in exhibiting our artists' work there as well. Has Rory's work been exhibited? He has. So he's been in a few of our on-site shows, and then of course we're constantly trying to work to get him in off-site exhibitions as well. We have kind of a tier system set up for a lot of our artists, and it's just dependent upon, we're very artist-centered, so we have annual artist meetings with them to talk to them about their career stage, and then we also focus on, how long they've been with our program. So he's in about that middle stage where we're really trying to get his work out into the community as much as we possibly can and really kind of advance his career.
It sounds to me also like, so there's the part of creating the art that's so fulfilling for these individuals, these artists, but now you get to exhibit it, you get to show it to other people, and you get to be the star of it. Like, what's that like?
Oh,
what's it like for them?
Yes, it is absolutely spectacular. What the greatest thing, in my opinion, is, if the exhibition is local, the off-site exhibition, we always try to make it a point to take the artists to the show to see their work. And what is great about opportunities like that is you have an artist with a disability, his work featured right alongside an artist without a disability. And when somebody walks into that space, they don't recognize it. The disability is totally stripped from their identity. And instead, people are focusing on the artwork. They're focusing on the fact that this was created by an artist. And I think that in and of itself really provides them with this professional esteem that we all strive for.
Yeah, it's got to be amazing. Now, there's this other part where you're selling the artwork too, right?
Yes. So our artists receive 50% of each art sale, and we also have products in our gallery space as well, and they receive 50% of those sales as well. And some of our artists are earning $15,000 or even $20,000 a year from the sale of their artwork. Yeah. We also host an auction during our annual fundraising event. And my favorite story ever is this year it completely broke records, and we had one of our art pieces go for $23,000.
Oh, wow.
So an artist was able to take home a check for $11,500 just from one of his pieces selling.
Oh, that must have been like... I mean, well.
Yes, that is up there with very well-known artists and how much they're selling their work for.
I wonder, so if you look forward as you kind of think this out, I mean, growing this beyond, California, are those in your thoughts and plans?
Yeah, so we've been approached pretty regularly by people around the world trying to start organizations like ours, whether it be, small programs that they have within a larger organization that works with people with disabilities, or specific art studios working with artists with disabilities. But we're constantly trying to think of ways that we can grow and expand within the San Francisco Bay Area. We recognize, for instance, in San Mateo County, they don't really have a studio for artists with disabilities to attend. So are there opportunities? Are there ways that we could kind of have a presence down there as well? And then, of course, providing the sort of knowledge base or insight into working with artists with disabilities. We are definitely always looking for people to talk to about this and provide all of that information that they might need to start something like ours in another city around the world.
What about working with schools? I mean, I know, like, when my brother was growing up, there were certain public schools where they had programs for kids with disabilities, and he felt like he was part of a school. Like, he went to the football games of his high school, and he felt like he was part of that community, and they, of course, had special classes. But I imagine that some of the schools who do that would want to bring you guys in to do that locally.
Yeah, so that is actually a new initiative of ours. A few years ago, this all started really because we started to recognize the disparities that exist among, people who join our program or people who are interested in joining our program. So what we're trying to do as of 2018 in trying to strengthen this program is really reduce those disparities as much as possible. So what we've done and what we're doing is we are translating all of our material into multiple languages, so that way people who don't speak English as their first language can learn about our program. And we are now partnering with SFUSD, San Francisco Unified School District, with their Title I schools to go out and speak to the parents and the students with disabilities, so that way they learn about our programs in high school. And how we're doing that is actually kind of a unique approach. We are actually having some of our artists go and teach art making classes to these students so they can have a love of art making. And then eventually our hope is that when they turn 18, or when they are now graduated from high school and out of the school system, they become interested in our program and maybe potentially might want to join.
Yeah.
Which American company started with a guy in a garage, was featured on Shark Tank, and now has over 1 million customers? Hint, they're reducing crime in neighborhoods everywhere. Here's Ring Video Doorbell founder Jamie Siminoff with his secret to success.
It's true. In just a few years, we've had huge growth. We've hired hundreds of people, expanded our warehouse, and we're shipping millions of units a year, all while making sure our customers are happy. I've had lots of things to worry about, but I never worry about our finance and accounting, because we use NetSuite from Oracle. From the beginning, NetSuite let me see what's going on with my business in real time, from revenues to expenses, customers and orders, even HR. I run my business from a dashboard right on my phone. NetSuite has been my business management system from 10 to a team of over 1,000, and NetSuite will be my choice as we continue to innovate and grow.
Go to netsuite.com/ring to see how Jamie scaled his business. You'll also get our free guide titled Overcoming Your 5 Obstacles to Growth. That's netsuite.com/ring for your free guide and the story of a great American company. netsuite.com/ring.
I imagine it's probably a little different here in San Francisco, because I feel like here people are a lot more open-minded about things. But I'm curious about the support of the community, and, not just the people who are disabled and their families and friends, but anyone. Like, what have you seen as you've grown this program, done some of these exhibitions? What has that been like?
Oh, yes. It's been really incredible. Over the past 35 plus years that we've been around, a lot of people have been able to collect our artists' work, which is always great to hear about. They've, sent us pictures, tagged us on Instagram, showcasing that they have a piece from Creativity Explored proudly displayed in their living room or their kitchen. And another big benefit of having an open studio where people, the members of the public, can come in and speak directly with our artists is just seeing this connection that they have and this new understanding that they have of that the public has of people with disabilities and what they're really capable of. We have a volunteer program where artists from the community will actually assist in our studio. And I've had so many volunteers come up to me and show, hey, this is a piece that I'm working on, and this was actually inspired by one of your artists. And to hear that our artists are inspiring artists from the general contemporary arts community is really great to hear. And I think it really just changes the perception of people with disabilities and kind of what it is that they're capable of doing.
Sure. I've kind of skipped over you, and what is your role at Creativity Explored?
So my role is going back to how we're funded. I am responsible for fundraising. So I work as part of a team of 2 people in trying to raise about $1 million each year to sustain our programming.
So what are the successes that you've had? How have you achieved that?
So we do this through a variety of ways. Of course, we write a lot of grants and we try to connect with our individual donors and supporters as much as possible. And another thing that we do is we provide opportunities for our donors to interact directly with our artists. So our studio, as I said before, is open to the public Monday through Friday while our artists are in there working. So we facilitate tours with companies or with groups of people. We also have a public workshop on Saturdays from 1 to 4 p.m. So, encouraging our donors to come to that. I think it's all about creating these connections and showing this is the person that you are supporting, because it's all about the individual and the person behind the story.
What are some of the challenges? I mean, I imagine there's so many nonprofits, there's so many great causes. What are your particular challenges?
Yeah, so I think one of our biggest challenges is that we're kind of at this intersection of working with people with disabilities and in the arts. So sometimes people who might support straight up people with disabilities might overlook our organization, and some people who like to support the arts might overlook our organization. So we're trying to constantly be creative in having that intersection come together and showing how they can really work well together. So you can be an arts funder who really supports the San Francisco MoMA, and you can still support Creativity Explored because we're creating just as beautiful artwork as what's displayed in the San Francisco MoMA.
Why are you involved with Creativity Explored?
I was first introduced to Creativity Explored when I came to an exhibition. I had actually not heard about Creativity Explored before, and I went to an exhibit opening night and found out about it through social media, and I love art. And so I attended, and I was blown away by the artwork I was seeing. And in addition to seeing the artwork, I was able to meet some of the artists whose work was featured in that show, and hearing from them, hearing from their perspective immediately made me think, I don't care what it is that I'm doing for this organization. I want to work for them. I don't care if I'm cleaning the bathroom or sweeping the floor. I want to be part of this. And so slowly but surely, after attending numerous openings and following them on social media and, following them on their website, I found a job posting, applied, and I was lucky enough to get a job. So,
wow.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That was 3 years ago.
What has been the most rewarding part of those 3 years?
Oh, every day is very rewarding. There is a very genuine interest in greeting everybody as they come in the door. So every single day I hear hello from all of our artists, which really warms my heart. And whenever I'm absent, whether it be because I'm sick or I'm on vacation, the next day immediately everybody asks, "Where were you? Are you okay?" And it's just so genuine and authentic. It's really meaningful to feel as though, I'm part of this large family.
Do you have a background in fundraising and nonprofits?
I do. So I've spent my entire life working as a fundraiser for nonprofits.
Wow. Well, that's got to be rewarding, especially when it works.
Yes.
What advice would you have for other nonprofit leaders?
Yes. My advice for really anyone is find something that you're passionate about and something that you love. I've been fortunate to really enjoy all of the organizations I've worked with. But when I found Creativity Explored and knew that I had a passion for this, I recognized it immediately and knew it was something that I wanted to get involved with. And in addition to that, of course, making sure to practice self-care. I think that, vicarious trauma is definitely a thing, especially when working with vulnerable populations. So keeping in mind to take some time off and to relax and to just tune out.
And do you own some of the Creativity Explored art?
Yes, I do. And I'm looking for new space in my apartment to hang it. Some of it is just leaning against bookshelves on my floor, but I'm sure I can do a little rearranging to try to find spots. But yes, I own numerous pieces.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
I'll reiterate her advice right here. If you're looking to work for a nonprofit organization, make sure it's one you're super passionate about, one that will drive you to put in the hours and effort that you need to really make a difference. And if it sounds like Creativity Explored is an organization with which you would like to get involved, we've left the link in the description of this podcast episode to help you do just that. I want to thank so much Rory, an amazing artist, amazing human being, and Megan Hover for joining us on this episode of the Grow Wire podcast. I also want to thank our sponsors at The Second City and Ring, our editors over at Lampstand, as well as our producer, Kendall Fisher. Thank you, Kendall.
Thank you. This was such an awesome podcast to be part of.
Thank all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Bye.
You just listened to the Grow Wire podcast with host Fritz Nelson. Make sure to keep tuning in for more episodes full of tips, tools, stories, and strategies to help take your personal and professional growth to the next level. Until next time.